Thomas Harrington pulled up to the community center in his sleek black car, adjusting his expensive watch as he stepped out. The building was modest, red brick with cheerful if slightly faded murals painted on the side. Nothing like the polished glass and steel of his corporate offices. "Mr. Harrington, we're so honored you could join us today," said Mrs. Chen, the center's director, hurrying down the steps to greet him. Her smile was genuine, unlike the practiced grins he encountered in boardrooms. "Please call me Thomas," he replied, shaking her hand firmly. "I'm glad to be here." In truth, he hadn't wanted to come. His assistant had arranged this photo opportunity as part of their new community outreach campaign. "It'll humanize you," she'd explained, and Thomas had reluctantly agreed. At 42, with more money than he could spend in a lifetime, he found himself increasingly concerned with his legacy. As Mrs. Chen guided him through the community center, Thomas maintained a polite smile while mentally reviewing his upcoming meetings. They passed a classroom where elderly residents were learning computer skills, then a small gymnasium where teenagers played basketball. "And this is our children's area," Mrs. Chen said, opening a door to a colorful room filled with toys, books, and the sound of children's laughter. Thomas nodded automatically, his eyes scanning the room without really seeing it, until a small movement caught his attention. A little girl with dark curly hair sat in the corner by herself, carefully building a tower of blocks. Something about the way she tilted her head in concentration made Thomas pause. "Who is that?" he asked, surprised by the urgency in his own voice. Mrs. Chen followed his gaze. "That's Lily. She's one of our regulars in the after-school program. Wonderful child, very creative." Thomas couldn't look away. The girl Lily had finished her tower and was now adding smaller blocks as decoration. When she smiled at her creation, Thomas felt an odd tightness in his chest. "How old is she?" he asked, trying to sound casual. 7, Mrs. Chen replied, giving him a curious look. "Would you like to meet some of the children? They're very excited about the new playground equipment your donation will provide." Thomas nodded, but as they moved toward the center of the room, his eyes kept drifting back to Lily. There was something hauntingly familiar about her, the shape of her eyes, the slight dimple in her left cheek when she smiled. The children gathered around, asking innocent questions about whether he was famous and if his car could fly. Thomas answered them kindly, but he found himself positioning his body so he could keep Lily in his peripheral vision. She hadn't joined the group, seemingly content with her blocks. After the official tour and photographs were complete, Thomas found himself lingering. "Do you mind if I stay a few minutes longer?" he asked Mrs. Chen. "I'd like to see more of what you do here." Mrs. Chen seemed surprised but pleased. "Of course. Feel free to look around." Thomas wandered back to the children's room, pretending to examine the bookshelves while watching Lily. She had moved on from blocks to drawing, her small face serious with concentration. A young staff member approached Lily with a gentle smile. "Ready to go, sweetheart?" "Miss Paula is here to pick you up," Lily nodded, carefully putting the crayons back in their box before gathering her backpack, a worn purple thing with cartoon characters Thomas didn't recognize. "Good job today," the staff member continued. "Did you finish your math worksheet?" "Yes," Lily replied, her voice soft but clear. "I got all the problems right." "That's fantastic." The woman helped Lily with her jacket. "You're getting so good at math. Maybe you'll be an engineer someday." Thomas moved closer, pretending to examine a bulletin board of children's artwork. "Miss Rachel?" Lily asked. "When is the adoption day again?" The question made Thomas freeze. "It's next month, honey. The second Saturday. Are you excited?" Lily nodded, but her eyes held a wariness that seemed too old for her years. "Do you think someone will pick me this time?" The staff member, Rachel, knelt down. "Any family would be lucky to have you, Lily. You're smart and kind and wonderful." Thomas felt like an intruder witnessing this private moment, but he couldn't move away. "But they always want babies," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Or they want kids without problems. You don't have problems, sweetheart. You just had some tough times." Lily shrugged, adjusting her backpack. "My file is thick. I heard Miss Paula talking about it." Rachel gave the child a hug. "Well, I think you're perfect just as you are. Now let's not keep Miss Paula waiting, okay?" As they walked toward the door, Thomas stepped back, busying himself with a display of children's books. But his mind was racing. Adoption day, foster care, The pieces were beginning to form a picture that made his heart pound. After they left, Thomas sought out Mrs. Chen again. He found her in her small office, surrounded by stacks of paperwork. "Mrs. Chen, I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all. Did you enjoy your visit?" Thomas sat down, choosing his words carefully. "That little girl, Lily, is she in foster care?" Mrs. Chen's expression became guarded. "We have many children from different backgrounds here, Mr. Harrington. I'm afraid I can't discuss specific cases." "I understand," Thomas said quickly. "I'm just concerned. She seemed so alone." Mrs. Chen's face softened slightly. "Many of our children face challenges. That's why centers like ours are so important. We provide stability and support." Thomas nodded, his mind still filled with images of Lily's serious little face. "Your work is invaluable," he said sincerely. "I'd like to increase my donation, actually, and perhaps become more involved with your programs." Mrs. Chen's eyebrows rose in surprise. "That's very generous, Mr. Harrington." As Thomas drove home to his expansive, empty mansion, he couldn't shake the feeling that had gripped him at the center. There was something about Lily, something familiar that tugged at memories he'd tried to bury. 8 years ago, he'd been a different man, struggling to launch his business, working 18-hour days and desperately in love with Anna Sullivan. She'd been a kindergarten teacher then, with bright eyes and a laugh that made everyone around her smile. They'd talked about marriage, about children, about a future together. But as his business finally began to take off, their relationship had crumbled under the weight of his ambition. Anna had left him on a rainy Tuesday in April. "You don't have room in your life for me anymore, Thomas," she'd said sadly. "Maybe you never will." He'd been too proud, too focused on finally achieving success to fight for her. By the time he realized what he'd lost, Anna had moved away, leaving no forwarding address. Thomas had hired someone to find her, just to make sure she was okay, he told himself, but she had seemingly vanished. Until 3 years ago, when his investigator called with news, Anna Sullivan had died after a brief illness. Thomas had made anonymous arrangements to cover her funeral expenses, too ashamed to attend himself. But now, as he pulled into his driveway, a stunning possibility struck him. The timing would be right. Lily was 7 years old. Anna had left 8 years ago. Could it be possible? Had Anna been pregnant when she left him? Thomas sat in his parked car, staring at his magnificent house with its manicured gardens and marble columns, the home he'd built to prove his success to a woman who would never see it. "I need to know," he whispered to himself, pulling out his phone and dialing his lawyer's number. Tomorrow he would begin searching for answers. Tonight, he would sit with the possibility that somewhere along the way, in his relentless pursuit of wealth and status, he might have lost something far more precious than he ever imagined. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Thomas's home office as he paced back and forth, phone pressed to his ear. He hadn't slept well, his dreams filled with images of a little girl with familiar eyes. "I need this information as quickly as possible, Peter," Thomas said to his lawyer, "whatever it costs." "I understand the urgency," Peter replied, "but these things take time. Adoption and foster care records are confidential for good reason." Thomas stopped by the window, looking out at his perfectly maintained garden where no children had ever played. "I'm not asking you to break any laws, just find out what you can about her. About Anna Sullivan, too. Anything from the last 8 years of her life." After hanging up, Thomas sat at his desk and opened his laptop. He typed Anna Sullivan into the search bar, something he hadn't allowed himself to do for years. Most results were irrelevant. Social media profiles of strangers, news articles about people he didn't know. On the 4th page, he found a small obituary from a local newspaper. The words were few and painful. "Anna Sullivan, beloved teacher and mother, passed away after a brief illness. She is survived by her daughter." Mother. The word made Thomas's hands shake. His intercom buzzed, startling him. "Sir, Mr. Reynolds is here to discuss the downtown property," his housekeeper announced. Thomas had completely forgotten about the meeting. "Tell him I'm not feeling well. We'll reschedule." For the first time in his career, business would have to wait. The next day, Thomas returned to the community center, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater rather than his usual suit. He brought with him a donation of new books for the children's room, a transparent excuse for his visit. Mrs. Chen welcomed him warmly. 2 visits in 1 week. We're honored, Mr. Harrington. I was in the neighborhood, Thomas lied. Are the after-school programs running today? They are. The children will be arriving in about an hour if you'd like to stay. Thomas arranged the new books on the shelves, checking his watch every few minutes. When the children began arriving, he pretended to be absorbed in organizing art supplies while scanning each small face that entered. His heart sank when the room filled with noisy, energetic kids, but no sign of Lily. As he was about to leave, she appeared in the doorway, clutching her purple backpack. Today her hair was tied back with a blue ribbon that had seen better days. "Hello," Thomas said before he could stop himself. Lily looked up at him, her expression cautious. "Hi, I'm Thomas. I brought some new books for the center." She nodded politely. "That's nice. I like books. What kind do you like to read?" he asked, desperate to keep her talking. "Stories about animals and magic." She pointed to the shelf where he'd placed a collection of fairy tales. "Like those ones," Thomas smiled. "Those were my favorites when I was your age, too." A small crease appeared between her eyebrows. "You're the rich man from yesterday. The one buying the playground." "That's right. Why are you here again?" Her directness caught him off guard. Before he could answer, Rachel appeared beside Lily. "There you are. Ready for homework time?" She noticed Thomas and smiled in recognition. "Mr. Harrington, welcome back." Thomas nodded, suddenly unsure of himself. "I brought some books." "That's very thoughtful," Rachel said. "Lily, why don't you thank Mr. Harrington?" "Thank you," Lily said dutifully, though her eyes held questions. As Rachel led her away, Thomas felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. What had he expected? That he would look into her eyes and instantly know the truth? That she would recognize something in him? Back in his car, Thomas called Peter again. "Any news?" he asked without preamble. "Some," Peter replied. "Anna Sullivan died of pneumonia 3 years ago. She was living in Riverdale, about 2 hours from here. I'm still working on getting information about her daughter." "Riverdale," Thomas repeated. That explained why his previous searches had failed. He'd been looking in all the wrong places. "There's something else," Peter continued. "According to my contact at Social Services, Anna Sullivan's daughter entered foster care after her death. The child had no other living relatives." Thomas gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. "So Lily could be—" "It's possible," Peter said carefully. "But Thomas, you need to prepare yourself. Even if this child is biologically yours, she's been through a lot. And legally establishing paternity after all this time will be complicated." "I don't care about complicated," Thomas said firmly. "If she's my daughter, I need to know." That evening, Thomas sat in his study surrounded by old photos he'd kept hidden away. Pictures of Anna smiling at the camera, her eyes, the same shape and color as Lily's. Pictures of them together in happier times. Before his work consumed him, his phone rang. Peter again. "I have preliminary confirmation," his lawyer said without greeting. "Lily Sullivan, age 7, entered foster care 3 years ago after her mother's death. Birth certificate lists mother as Anna Sullivan." Thomas held his breath. "And the father?" "Father unknown. Left blank on the birth certificate." The words hit Thomas like a physical blow. Anna had never told him. She'd raised their child alone rather than share her with him. "There's more," Peter continued, his voice hesitant. "According to my contact, Anna had twins." Thomas nearly dropped the phone. "Twins?" "Yes. Lily has a twin brother who was adopted shortly after entering foster care. The siblings were separated due to circumstances I'm still unclear about." "A son," Thomas whispered. "I have a son too?" "Possibly," Peter cautioned. "We still need DNA testing to confirm paternity. But based on the timeline—" "Find him," Thomas interrupted. "Find my son." The next week passed in a blur. Thomas canceled meetings, delegated projects, and spent hours on the phone with Peter, with social workers, with experts in family law. He visited the community center 3 more times, bringing gifts each time, art supplies, educational games, new curtains for the children's room. Each visit, he spent a little more time with Lily, learning about her favorite colors, blue and silver, her best subject in school, science, and her dream of having a dog someday. "I'd name him Rocket," she told Thomas as they worked on a puzzle together. "Because he'd zoom around super fast." Thomas smiled, noting how she stuck out her tongue slightly when concentrating. "Just as he did." "That's a great name for a dog." Miss Paula says I can't have pets in the foster home, Lily continued matter-of-factly. But maybe my forever family will let me. The casual way she referred to her situation broke Thomas's heart. How many times had she been disappointed? How many forever families had considered her before choosing another child? Lily, he said carefully, what do you remember about your mom? The question made her hands go still on the puzzle pieces. She was pretty, and she smelled like flowers. She used to sing me songs before bedtime. Her voice grew quieter. Sometimes I forget what she sounded like. Thomas swallowed the lump in his throat. I bet she was wonderful, Lily nodded.
She told me my daddy was a prince who lived in a castle.
But I think that was just a story. Later that day, Peter called with news about Lily's brother. His name is Nate. He was adopted by a couple named Jack and Beth Taylor. They live in Millfield, about 30 miles from here. How is he? Is he happy? Healthy? Thomas fired questions rapidly. From what I can tell, he's doing well. The Taylors run a small bookstore. They seem like good people. I need to see him, Thomas said. Slow down, Peter warned. We're still waiting on the DNA results. And approaching his adoptive parents without any legal standing could create problems. But Thomas couldn't slow down. Not now. He drove past the Taylor's bookstore twice that week, parking across the street and watching. The second time, he saw a boy helping to arrange a window display. A small figure with dark hair like Lily's, carefully placing books on a stand. Even from a distance, Thomas could see himself in the boy's profile, in the determined set of his shoulders. His son. The word felt strange and wonderful in his mind. The DNA results arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Thomas was in a meeting when Peter called, and he excused himself immediately, ignoring the surprised looks of his executive team. It's confirmed, Peter said simply. 99.9% probability that you're the biological father of both children. Thomas leaned against the wall, his legs suddenly weak. What happens now? Now we approach the court. As the biological father who was never informed of their existence, you have rights. But Thomas, Peter's voice grew serious. This will be complicated. Nate has been legally adopted. Lily is in the foster system, but has formed relationships there. Moving too quickly could be traumatic for them. Thomas thought of Lily's cautious eyes, of Nate arranging books in the window. They'd built lives without him, lives he had no right to disrupt without considering what was best for them. I understand, he said finally. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. Whatever is right for them. That night, Thomas stood at the window of his empty mansion looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, his children were going to sleep in homes that weren't his, under the care of people who weren't their father. Yet for the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope, and the weight of a responsibility greater than any business deal he'd ever made. I'll find a way, he promised the night sky. I'll find a way to be the father you deserve. The autumn breeze scattered golden leaves across the elementary school playground as Thomas sat in his car, hands gripping the steering wheel. He checked his watch, 2:15 p.m. School would dismiss in 15 minutes. His heart hammered in his chest and he took several deep breaths to calm himself. After weeks of legal consultations and careful planning, today he would meet his son for the first time. Not as a stranger watching from across the street, but face to face with the blessing of Nate's adoptive parents. The meeting had been arranged through a series of delicate conversations. Thomas had sent a letter to Jack and Beth Taylor, explaining the situation and requesting a chance to talk. He'd expected anger or rejection, but instead received a phone call from Beth just 3 days later. We always knew this day might come, she'd told him, her voice steady but cautious. We've never hidden from Nate that he was adopted. He knows he has a sister somewhere too. I don't want to disrupt your family, Thomas had assured her. I just want to know your son, Beth had finished for him. I understand. If I were in your position, I'd feel the same way. They'd agreed that Thomas would first meet Jack and Beth alone, then be introduced to Nate as a friend of the family, while they determined the best way forward. That initial meeting had taken place at a quiet cafe last week. Thomas had been surprised by the Taylors, Jack with his kind eyes and rumpled sweater, Beth with her warm smile and direct manner. They weren't at all what he'd expected, though he wasn't sure what exactly he had expected. Nate is the center of our world, Jack had said simply. Whatever happens, his well-being comes first. Thomas had nodded. feeling both grateful for their care of his son and a sharp pang of jealousy that they'd been there for all the moments he'd missed. "Tell us about Lily," Beth had asked. "How is she doing?" Thomas had shared what he knew, that Lily was bright but guarded, creative, and resilient despite the instability of foster care. "We tried to adopt her too," Beth had confessed, tears in her eyes. "When we learned about Nate's twin sister, we applied immediately. But the timing was wrong. We had just finalized Nate's adoption and the system." She'd shaken her head. "By the time we navigated the paperwork, another placement had been found for her. It fell through eventually, but by then everything had become complicated." The revelation had stunned Thomas. These people had tried to keep his children together while he hadn't even known they existed. Now, as school dismissal approached, Thomas straightened his tie nervously. Today's meeting had been arranged under the pretense that the Taylor's bookstore was hosting a career day, and Thomas, as a successful businessman, would talk to Nate's class about entrepreneurship. Afterwards, the Taylors had invited him to their home for dinner, a chance to spend time with Nate in a comfortable setting. The school bell rang, and moments later, children spilled out onto the playground. Thomas scanned the crowd until he spotted Jack Taylor waiting by the fence. Beside him stood a small boy with a blue backpack, Nate. Even from a distance, the resemblance took Thomas's breath away. Nate had his jawline, his nose, but his expressions, the animated way he talked to his adoptive father, the bounce in his step, those must have come from Anna. Thomas waited until they reached their car before approaching. Jack spotted him and waved. "Thomas, glad you could make it." Thomas smiled, trying to appear casual while his heart threatened to burst from his chest. "Thanks for setting this up." Jack turned to Nate. "This is the businessman I told you about, Mr. Harrington. He'll be speaking to your class tomorrow about running his own company." Thomas knelt down to Nate's level, extending his hand. "Nice to meet you, Nate." The boy shook his hand solemnly, his grip surprisingly firm for a 7-year-old. "Do you really own a skyscraper?" Thomas laughed, the tension easing slightly. "Part of one. I share it with other businesses." "Cool," Nate said, his eyes, Anna's eyes, studying Thomas with interest. "Dad says you're coming to dinner tonight. Can I show you my rock collection?" "I'd like that very much," Thomas replied, fighting the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. The Taylor home was a cozy 2-story house with bookshelves in every room. An occupational hazard, Beth explained with a laugh. While she prepared dinner, Jack gave Thomas a tour, Nate bouncing ahead to point out his favorite spots. "And this is my room," Nate announced proudly, opening a door to reveal walls painted deep blue with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. "Nate's going through a space phase," Jack explained. "The stars make constellations," Nate informed Thomas seriously. "Dad and I put them up together. That's Orion, and that's the Big Dipper, and that one's Pegasus." Thomas looked at the ceiling, imagining father and son carefully placing each star. It was another moment he'd missed, another memory he couldn't claim. "Very impressive," he said, hiding his sadness. "You must know a lot about astronomy." Nate nodded eagerly. "I'm going to be an astronaut. Or maybe a paleontologist, or both." During dinner, Thomas watched his son. The way he cut his food into precise squares, how he remembered to thank Beth for cooking, his excited chatter about school and friends and the book he was reading. This was a happy, well-adjusted child. The Taylors had given him everything Thomas hadn't been there to provide. After dinner, as promised, Nate showed Thomas his rock collection, dozens of specimens carefully labeled and arranged in a display case. "This one glows under blacklight," Nate said, holding up a pale stone. "And this one has tiny fossils in it. Where did you find them all?" Thomas asked. "Some are from hiking with Mom and Dad. Some kids at school gave me. And some—" Nate hesitated, his expression suddenly serious. "Some were from before." "Before?" Thomas asked carefully. Nate nodded. "Before I lived with Mom and Dad, I don't remember much, but I had these rocks." He pointed to 3 smooth stones in the corner of the case. "Mom says they're important because they're part of my story." Thomas felt a lump form in his throat. Had Anna given those to him? Or had they been the treasures of a little boy trying to hold on to something stable in an uncertain world? Later, after Nate went to bed, Thomas sat with Jack and Beth in their living room, a cup of coffee cooling in his hands. "He's amazing," Thomas said softly. "You've done a wonderful job with him." "He makes it easy," Beth replied. He's such a good kid. Curious about everything, kind-hearted. Have you told him about Lily? Thomas asked. Jack nodded. He knows he has a twin sister. Sometimes he asks about her, what she looks like, if she likes the same things he does. We've always said that someday, when the time is right, they'll meet. Thomas took a deep breath. I've been working with social services regarding Lily. As her biological father, I'm applying for custody. The Taylors exchanged glances. That's wonderful, Beth said sincerely. She deserves a permanent home. If the courts approve and if you're comfortable with it, I'd like for Nate to meet her. Thomas hesitated. I know this is complicated. I'm not trying to disrupt your family or confuse Nate, but they're siblings and I believe they should know each other. Jack leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. We've always wanted that for him too. But how do we explain who you are? That's the part I'm struggling with. It was the question that had kept Thomas awake at night. How do you tell a child that his biological father has suddenly appeared? How do you explain the complexities of adult decisions and their consequences? I think we need professional help with this, Thomas admitted. A child psychologist who specializes in adoption and family transitions. Someone who can guide all of us in doing what's best for both children. Beth nodded, relief evident in her expression. I agree completely. As Thomas prepared to leave, Jack walked him to the door. You know, he said quietly, when we first got the letter from you, I was terrified. I thought you might try to take him from us. Thomas shook his head firmly. Never. You're his parents in all the ways that truly matter. I just want to be part of his life, if that's possible. I believe it is, Jack replied. And Thomas, thank you for thinking of what's best for him, not just what you want. Driving home, Thomas felt a mix of emotions he couldn't quite name. Joy at finally meeting his son. Gratitude toward the Taylors for their generosity of spirit. Hope for a future where he could know both his children. And a lingering sadness for all the years lost. Years he could never reclaim. The next day, Thomas visited the community center again. He found Lily in the art corner, carefully painting a picture. That's beautiful, he said, sitting beside her. What are you painting? Lily looked up, her expression brightening when she recognized him. It's a family, see? There's the mom and the dad and the kids. And the dog. Thomas studied the painting. A simple house with 4 stick figures standing in front, plus a brown blob with 4 legs that must be the dog. Is that the family you want someday? He asked gently. Lily nodded, adding a purple flower to the picture. Miss Paula says I might get adopted soon. There's a new family coming to meet me next week. That's exciting, Thomas said, though his heart raced at the news. His custody petition was still working its way through the system, slowed by the complexities of his situation. I guess. Lily shrugged, her brush hesitating over the paper. But sometimes families see me and then pick someone else. The matter-of-fact way she said it, as if rejection were simply a normal part of life, made Thomas want to gather her into his arms. Instead, he said carefully, Any family would be lucky to have you, Lily. She gave him a skeptical look, far too wise for her 7 years. You say that because you're nice. But grown-ups usually want babies or kids who don't have problems. What problems do you think you have? Thomas asked. Lily concentrated on her painting. Sometimes I get sad about my mom, and I have bad dreams and... She lowered her voice to a whisper. I miss someone I don't remember. Who? Thomas asked, his throat tight. I don't know, she said, dabbing yellow paint onto the sun in her picture. That's the weird part. But it feels like someone important is missing. Miss Rachel says it's normal because my mom died, but it's different. She looked up at Thomas suddenly. Do you ever feel like that? Like you're missing someone you don't know? Thomas nodded slowly, unable to speak past the emotion clogging his throat. Yes, he managed finally. I do. Rain tapped gently against the windows of Thomas's home office as he reviewed the documents spread across his desk. After weeks of legal meetings, home visits, and interviews, today was the day. His custody petition for Lily would be officially submitted to the court. Everything looks in order, said Diane, his family law attorney, as she gathered the papers into a folder. Unlike Peter, who handled his business affairs, Diane specialized in complex family cases. Her calm demeanor had been Thomas's anchor through this emotional process. How long until we hear something? Thomas asked, signing the last form. It varies. Given your circumstances, biological father never informed of the birth, no previous abandonment issues. We have a strong case. But these things take time. Diane met his eyes directly. Are you absolutely sure you're ready for this? Being a parent isn't like running a company. You can't delegate the hard parts. Thomas thought about the changes he'd already made. The scaled-back work hours, the renovations to create a bedroom for Lily, the parenting book stacked by his bed. I'm sure, more sure than I've been about anything. After Diane left, Thomas stood at his window watching raindrops trace patterns on the glass. The past month had been transformative. 3 times a week he visited the community center to spend time with Lily. They'd built towers with blocks, read stories together, and slowly, cautiously formed a connection. She no longer looked surprised when he arrived, sometimes even saving a seat for him at the craft table. His phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Jack Taylor. Thomas, we've been talking with Dr. Wilson, the family therapist you recommended. She thinks it might be time to tell Nate the truth. Thomas gripped the phone tighter. About me? Yes. She suggests a controlled setting, her office, with all of us present. She'll help guide the conversation, make it easier for him to process. Thomas felt a mix of excitement and fear. When? This Saturday, if that works for you. 10 in the morning. I'll be there, Thomas promised. The call ended, leaving Thomas in a state of nervous anticipation. How would Nate react? Would he be confused, angry? Would he feel betrayed by the adults in his life? The rest of the week crawled by. Thomas found himself unable to focus on work, his thoughts constantly drifting to the upcoming meeting. On Friday, he visited Lily as usual, helping her build a diorama of a rainforest for her science project. You're quiet today, she observed, carefully placing a tiny paper toucan in a tree. Thomas smiled. Children noticed everything. Just thinking about some important things happening tomorrow. Good important or bad important? Lily asked, serious eyes studying his face. Good important, I hope. But a little scary too, Lily nodded wisely. Like when I had to change schools after my mom died. Miss Paula said it was good important because the new school had better teachers. But it was still scary, exactly like that. Thomas agreed, amazed by her insight. As he was leaving, Rachel pulled him aside. Just so you know, the family that was scheduled to meet Lily canceled. It's the 3rd time this has happened. Thomas frowned. Did they give a reason? Rachel sighed. They decided to pursue a younger child. Lily doesn't know yet. I'm trying to find the right time to tell her. Let me know when you do, Thomas said. I'd like to be here for her if possible. Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and sunshine that felt at odds with Thomas's churning stomach. He arrived at Dr. Wilson's office 20 minutes early, pacing the waiting room until Jack and Beth arrived with Nate, who looked confused by the unfamiliar setting. Is this another doctor? Nate asked his parents. I'm not sick. Not that kind of doctor, Beth explained gently. Dr. Wilson helps families talk about important things. Dr. Wilson greeted them warmly, inviting them into a comfortable room with soft couches and shelves of toys. She spoke directly to Nate, explaining that they were all here to share something important with him. Sometimes grown-ups have big news that might feel confusing at first, she said, sitting across from Nate. We're here to help you understand and to answer all your questions. Nate looked around the room, his eyes settling on Thomas. Is it about why Mr. Harrington keeps coming to our house for dinner? The adults exchanged surprised glances. You're very perceptive, Dr. Wilson said. Yes, it is about Mr. Harrington. He has a special connection to your family. Jack moved to sit beside Nate, putting an arm around his shoulders. Remember how we've talked about adoption? How you grew in another mother's tummy before you came to live with Mom and me? Nate nodded. And I have a sister somewhere. That's right, Beth said, her voice gentle. Well, Mr. Harrington, Thomas is your biological father. That means he's the one who helped your first mother create you. Nate's eyes widened as he looked at Thomas. You're my real dad? Jack is your real dad, Thomas said quickly. He's the one who's raised you and loved you every day. I'm your biological father, the person whose DNA you share. That's why we look a bit alike. Nate studied Thomas's face intently. Oh, that's why we have the same nose. He turned to Jack. But you're still my dad, right? Always, Jack assured him, eyes glistening. Nothing will ever change that. So I have 2 dads now? Nate asked, trying to work it out. Dr. Wilson smiled. In a way, yes. You have your dad who raises you and loves you every day, and you have Thomas who is connected to you by birth and wants to know you. Nate considered this, his young face serious with concentration. Then he asked the question they'd all been anticipating. What about my sister? Is she with you? Thomas leaned forward. Not yet, but I'm working on it. Her name is Lily, and she looks a lot like you. She's been living with different families since your birth mother. Her name was Anna, passed away. Is she okay? Nate asked, concern evident in his voice. She's safe, Thomas assured him. But she doesn't have a permanent family yet. That's something else I wanted to talk to all of you about. I'm trying to become Lily's legal father, not just biological, but the one who raises her. Beth reached out to take Thomas's hand, surprising him. We think that's wonderful, she said. And we've been talking, Jack and I, about how we might all work together so you two can know each other. Dr. Wilson guided the conversation gently as Nate processed this new information. He asked dozens of questions. Did Thomas know his first mom? Why hadn't he been there before? Did Lily like dinosaurs too? Would Thomas take her away somewhere far? Thomas answered as honestly as he could, simplifying complex adult situations without lying. No, he hadn't known about Nate and Lily until recently. Yes, he had loved their mother very much once. No, he wouldn't take Lily far away. In fact, he hoped they could live close enough for Nate and Lily to see each other often. Would you like to meet your sister? Thomas asked finally. Nate nodded without hesitation. Today? The adults laughed, relieving some of the tension. Not today, Jack explained. We need to prepare Lily too. She doesn't know about any of this yet. As the session ended, Nate approached Thomas shyly. Can I ask you something? Anything, Thomas said. Did my first mom talk about me? Did she? He struggled to find the words. Did she want me? Thomas knelt to meet Nate's eyes. Your mother loved you very, very much. I didn't know about you then. But from what I've learned, she did everything she could to keep you and Lily safe and happy. She would be so proud of the boy you've become. Nate nodded, seeming satisfied. Then, in a move that caught Thomas completely off guard, the boy gave him a quick hug before running back to Jack and Beth. The following week was a whirlwind. Thomas met with Lily's social worker, Mrs. Parker, to discuss the next steps in his custody petition. She was guardedly optimistic. The DNA results are compelling, she said, and your living situation is certainly adequate. This was an understatement. Thomas's home was spacious and now equipped with everything a 7-year-old girl might need. The main concern is the relationship. Lily needs stability and has already experienced significant trauma. I understand, Thomas said. That's why I've been spending so much time with her before making any announcements. I want her to feel comfortable with me first. Mrs. Parker nodded approvingly. Dr. Wilson has suggested we use a similar approach as with Nate, a controlled setting with familiar adults present. Lily is more vulnerable given her experiences in foster care. They scheduled the meeting for the following Thursday. Thomas spent the intervening days in a state of nervous anticipation. He visited Lily twice more, each time fighting the urge to blurt out the truth. When Thursday arrived, Thomas met with Dr. Wilson, Mrs. Parker, and Rachel from the community center, half an hour before Lily was due to arrive. Remember, Dr. Wilson cautioned, children in foster care often have complicated feelings about biological parents. She may feel abandoned, confused, or even angry, or she might immediately want to go home with you. Be prepared for any reaction, Thomas nodded, his mouth dry. I just want her to know she's wanted, that she always was. At exactly 4 o'clock, Rachel brought Lily to the office. The little girl looked around curiously at the unfamiliar adults. Am I in trouble? She asked immediately. Not at all, Dr. Wilson assured her. We have some important news to share with you. Something good, but maybe surprising. Lily sat on the edge of the couch, her posture tense. Thomas recognized the look. She was preparing herself for disappointment, a skill no child should have to master. Dr. Wilson began gently, asking Lily what she knew about her birth parents. My mom's name was Anna. She got sick and died, Lily recited matter-of-factly. I don't know about my dad. Mom said he was special but couldn't be with us. Thomas felt a pang at her words. What had Anna told their daughter about him? That's right about your mom, Dr. Wilson said. And now we've learned something new about your dad. She gestured to Thomas. You've been getting to know Mr. Harrington at the community center, haven't you? Lily nodded, glancing at Thomas with new curiosity. Well, Dr. Wilson continued, Mr. Harrington knew your mother a long time ago, and after doing some special tests, we've discovered that he's your biological father. Lily's eyes widened, darting between the adults as if checking for some sign this was a joke. "You're my dad?" she finally asked Thomas directly. "Yes," he said simply, fighting to keep his voice steady. "I didn't know about you until recently, or I would have been there from the beginning. But now that I've found you, I want very much to be your father, if that's something you might want too." Lily's face went through a remarkable series of emotions: shock, confusion, hope, and then a guarded look that broke Thomas's heart. "Are you sure? People usually don't pick me." "I'm not picking you, Lily," Thomas said gently. "I'm recognizing you. You're my daughter. You always have been." "There's something else," Dr. Wilson added. "Something about that feeling you've had, of missing someone you can't remember." Lily looked at her in surprise. "You have a twin brother," Thomas explained. "His name is Nate. You were separated when your mom died, but he remembers you too. He wants very much to meet you." For the first time, Lily's careful composure cracked. "A brother? I have a brother?" Tears filled her eyes. "I knew it. I knew someone was missing." Thomas moved to sit beside her, careful not to crowd her space. "He looks just like you. Same eyes, same smile. He collects rocks and wants to be an astronaut or a paleontologist. He hasn't decided yet." A tear slipped down Lily's cheek. "Can I see him?" "Very soon," Thomas promised. "His parents, the family that adopted him, want you to meet too. We all want you and Nate to know each other." Lily was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. Then she looked up at Thomas with a directness that reminded him painfully of Anna. "If you're my dad, does that mean I'll live with you? No more foster care?" "That's what I want," Thomas said honestly. "I'm asking the courts for permission to be your legal father, not just biological. But it might take some time." "How long?" Lily asked. "A few more weeks, maybe months," Mrs. Parker interjected. "These things move slowly to make sure everything is right for you." Lily nodded, seeming to accept this. Then, with the resilience that continued to amaze Thomas, she asked, "Does your house have a yard? For a dog, maybe?" Thomas laughed, relief washing through him. "A very big yard. Perfect for a dog named Rocket who zooms around super fast." She smiled then, a real smile that reached her eyes. "You remembered." "I remember everything you tell me," Thomas said. "I always will." Spring sunshine warmed the playground of Westside Park as Thomas checked his watch for the 5th time in as many minutes. Today was the day. After weeks of careful preparation, Lily and Nate would finally meet. His heart beat a rapid rhythm against his ribs, equal parts excitement and nervousness. The court had granted Thomas temporary custody of Lily 2 weeks ago, allowing her to move into his home while the final adoption process continued. Those 14 days had been a whirlwind of adjustment for both of them. Lily learning to trust that this arrangement was permanent. Thomas learning the 100 daily tasks that parenting required. He'd discovered that Lily preferred her sandwiches cut into triangles, not squares. That she needed a nightlight shaped like a moon to sleep. That she hummed to herself when concentrating. Each new detail was a treasure, a piece of the puzzle that was his daughter. "Is that them?" Lily asked, pointing to a car pulling into the parking lot. Thomas nodded. "Yes, that's Jack and Beth. And Nate." Lily smoothed her blue dress nervously. She'd changed outfits 3 times this morning, wanting to look perfect for the brother she couldn't remember, but somehow had never forgotten. "What if he doesn't like me?" she whispered. Thomas knelt beside her. "He already likes you. He's been asking about you every day." The Taylor family approached slowly, giving the twins time to see each other from a distance. Nate walked between his parents, his expression a mixture of curiosity and apprehension that mirrored Lily's exactly. When they were about 10 feet apart, both children stopped, staring at each other with wide eyes. The adults exchanged glances, silently agreeing to let the children set the pace. "Hi," Nate said finally. "Hi," Lily replied, her voice barely audible. "I'm Nate." "I'm Lily." Another pause, filled with the weight of all they didn't know how to express. "We have the same eyes," Nate observed. Lily nodded. And the same hair. Do you like dinosaurs? Nate asked suddenly. Yes, Lily said, her face brightening. Triceratops is my favorite. Mine too, Nate exclaimed, his reserve cracking. I have a model of one in my room. It's green with yellow spots. Just like that, the ice was broken. Within minutes, the twins were heading toward the playground equipment, chattering about favorite animals, colors, and books as if they'd never been apart. Thomas felt a hand on his shoulder. Beth, her eyes glistening with tears. Look at them, she said softly. It's like they've known each other forever. Jack nodded, his expression a mix of joy and something more complex. They look so much alike. I can't believe we didn't find her sooner. You tried, Thomas reminded him. The system separated them, not you. As the adults settled on a bench to watch the children play, Thomas felt a profound gratitude for the Taylors. In the weeks since, Nate had learned the truth. They had been nothing but supportive, helping their son understand his expanding family with grace and generosity. How is Lily adjusting to living with you? Beth asked. Thomas smiled. Better than I expected. She still has nightmares sometimes, and she was very quiet the first few days. But yesterday I heard her singing in her room. Dr. Wilson says that's a good sign, that she's beginning to feel secure. And the final custody hearing? Jack asked. Next month, Thomas replied. Mrs. Parker submitted a very positive report. Unless something unexpected happens, Lily will legally be my daughter before summer. On the playground, the twins had moved to the swings, pumping their legs in perfect synchronization. Push us, Dad, Nate called, and both men rose automatically before looking at each other. Jack laughed. I think he means both of us. It was the first time Nate had acknowledged Thomas that way, as someone who could be called Dad alongside Jack. The word felt both foreign and right in Thomas's ears. As the afternoon progressed, the initial awkwardness between the families faded. They shared the picnic lunch Beth had packed, laughing as the twins discovered they both hated pickles but loved strawberries. Both preferred cake to pie. Both slept with stuffed elephants. Did your mom give you your elephant? Nate asked Lily, innocently broaching the subject that had been carefully avoided. Lily nodded. His name is Gray. He was a birthday present when I turned 4. Mine is called Trunk, Nate said. I've had him since I was a baby. Mom gave him to you too, Lily said with certainty. I remember. She frowned slightly. At least I think I do. Sometimes I'm not sure what I really remember and what I just think I remember. Beth exchanged glances with Thomas. They'd been told this might happen, fragments of early memories resurfacing when the twins were reunited. You're right, Beth said gently. Your mother gave Trunk to Nate when he was very small. She gave elephants to both of you. She liked elephants because they never forget their families, Lily said. Even when they're separated, they always remember. Thomas felt his throat tighten. Had Anna known somehow that their children might be separated? Had she tried in her way to give them something that would connect them across the distance? As the afternoon waned, the children's energy remained inexhaustible. They explored every inch of the playground, collected interesting rocks for Nate's collection, and invented a complicated game involving hopscotch rules that only they understood. We should do this every weekend, Nate declared as they finally gathered their belongings. We will, Thomas promised, looking to Jack and Beth for confirmation. Absolutely, Jack agreed. And maybe next time Lily can come see our house in your room, Nate. And my rock collection, Nate added excitedly. Lily looked up at Thomas. Can we, Dad? It was the first time she had called him that without hesitation or self-correction. Thomas blinked rapidly, not trusting himself to speak for a moment. Of course we can, he managed finally. As they said their goodbyes, the twins hugged tightly, as if afraid they might lose each other again. Thomas and Jack exchanged handshakes that turned into brief, back-slapping hugs, while Beth kissed Lily's cheek and whispered something in her ear that made the girl smile. On the drive home, Lily was uncharacteristically quiet, staring out the window with a thoughtful expression. What did you think of Nate? Thomas asked. He's nice, Lily said. It's weird though, I just met him, but it feels like I've known him my whole life. In a way you have, Thomas said. You were together before you were born, and for the first few years of your life. Lily considered this. Is that why I always felt like someone was missing because he was? I think so, Thomas said. Twins often have a special connection. They drove in silence for a while before Lily spoke again.
Dad, can I ask you something?
Anything. Why didn't you find us sooner? The question Thomas had been dreading, yet knew would eventually come. He'd discussed with Dr. Wilson how to answer honestly, without burdening Lily with adult complexities. Your mom and I separated before she knew she was going to have you, he explained carefully. She moved away and I didn't know where she was. I didn't know about you and Nate until after she passed away, and by then finding you took some time. Lily digested this. Were you and Mom fighting? Not exactly, Thomas said. I was working very hard on my business, too hard. I didn't make enough time for your mom and she decided we shouldn't be together anymore. Because you worked too much? Lily sounded skeptical. Thomas smiled faintly. Grown-up relationships are complicated, but the important thing is that your mom loved you very much, and if I had known about you, I would have been there. Do you think Mom would be mad that you found us? Lily asked. Thomas considered this carefully. I think she would be glad you're not alone, that you and Nate have found each other again. Your mom wanted what was best for you always. When they arrived home, Lily raced upstairs to get her elephant Gray, bringing him down to the living room where she had left her backpack. What are you doing? Thomas asked, watching as she carefully placed Gray inside. I want to bring him next time we see Nate, she explained. So Gray and Trunk can be together too. They probably miss each other like we did. That night, after Lily was asleep, Thomas sat in his study looking at an old photograph of Anna. It was one of the few he had kept, taken on a hiking trip in the early days of their relationship. She was laughing at the camera, hair blowing in the wind, eyes bright with life and possibilities. I wish you could see them, he whispered to the image. They're incredible, Anna. You did such a good job with them. He paused, throat tightening. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm trying to make it right now. The final custody hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday morning in late May. Thomas had arranged for Lily to spend the day with the Taylors, not wanting her to experience the stress of the courthouse. Remember, this is mostly formalities at this point, Diane assured him as they walked up the courthouse steps. The home study was excellent. Lily is clearly thriving in your care and you have biological confirmation. Judge Henderson just needs to review everything and make it official. Thomas nodded, straightening his tie. He had faced high-stakes business negotiations with less anxiety than he felt today. The courtroom was smaller than he expected, with just a few people present. Diane, Mrs. Parker, the court-appointed guardian ad litem who had evaluated Lily's case, and a court clerk. Judge Henderson, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes, reviewed the file carefully before looking up at Thomas. Mr. Harrington, I've read all the reports, including the recommendations from Dr. Wilson and Mrs. Parker. It appears that Lily is adjusting well to your home, and that you have made significant life changes to accommodate parenting. Yes, Your Honor, Thomas replied. I'm particularly impressed by the cooperation between you and the Taylor family regarding Lily's twin brother. That kind of collaborative parenting is rare and commendable. The Taylors have been incredibly supportive, Thomas said. Our priority is the children's well-being. Judge Henderson nodded approvingly. I've been on the bench for 30 years, Mr. Harrington, and I've seen many family situations. Yours is unusual, but sometimes unusual families are the ones that work best, because everyone has to try harder, communicate better, put the children first. She signed the paper before her with a flourish. It is the finding of this court that granting permanent custody to Thomas Harrington is in the best interest of the child. The adoption is hereby finalized. Congratulations, Mr. Harrington. Lily is legally your daughter. Thomas felt a wave of emotion so powerful it nearly knocked him off his feet. Thank you, Your Honor. Outside the courthouse, he checked his phone to find a text message from Beth. The kids are making cookies and asking when you'll be here. Good luck today. Thomas smiled, typing a quick reply. It's official. Be there soon. The drive to the Taylor's house seemed to take both forever and no time at all. Thomas's mind raced with plans. The small celebration he'd arranged for tonight. The official adoption day gift he'd hidden in his closet. the summer vacation they would take once school ended. As he pulled into the Taylor's driveway, the front door burst open. Lily and Nate raced out together, their faces smeared with cookie dough, their voices raised in excited questions. What did the judge say? Is it official now? Can we have our party tonight? Did you bring the papers to show us? Thomas laughed, kneeling down to embrace both children. Yes, it's official. Lily is legally my daughter now, just like Nate is legally Jack and Beth's son. Beth appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. That calls for a celebration. We made cookies, well, sort of. They're a little creative in shape. As they moved toward the house, Lily suddenly stopped, turning to look up at Thomas with serious eyes. Now that it's official, we'll always be together, right? No more different homes? That's right, Thomas assured her. We're a family now, forever. And Nate too? She pressed. He's still my brother, right? Always, Thomas promised. Some families live in different houses but are still connected. You and Nate will always be brother and sister no matter what. Lily considered this, then nodded decisively. Good, because I remembered something else. What's that? Thomas asked. When we were little, before Mom got sick, she used to say that no matter what happened, we would always find each other again. Lily smiled, a full, unguarded smile that transformed her face. And she was right. We did. As they walked into the house together, Thomas felt the weight of the past lifting. There would be challenges ahead, homework struggles and teenage rebellions, complicated holidays and logistical juggling between households. But today, watching the twins resume their baking project with Jack, seeing Beth set an extra place at their table for him, Thomas knew that they had created something precious from the fragments of the past. A family. Unconventional, perhaps, still healing, certainly, but whole at last.